You never know who they are. You wouldn't recognize them. When you realize that they are coming, you are already dead. When their names are mentioned, the taste of fear is felt. They are the first professional assassins. Their leader, Hassan Sabbah, is young, enthusiastic, intellectual and an outcast. In the year 1090, he captured the inaccessible Alamut Castle, which remained at the extreme points of a valley. And he made this place the epicenter. His goal is to overthrow the Seljuk Empire because he is a religious affiliated to the Ismāʿīlī sect. But the Seljuk state is Sunni. The fact that these two different sects interpret the Quran in a very different way from each other is the basis for Hassan Sabbah's desire to destroy the Seljuks. But how can he do this? He has a handful of followers in number. They don't have armies or wealth. Looking for a different solution, Hassan reveals his plan. He will train professional bouncers, secret, fast and daring men. He first taught the disciples who gathered around him and came to Alamut Castle with him the details of the Ismāʿīlī sect and the reasons for fighting against the Sunnis. He was an expert in propaganda because he had an impressive character. He was also a master of magic. But it is not known why he learned the Elder and for what purpose he used it. And after theoretical training, studies such as close combat, observation, infiltration into the camp were carried out. Hassan Sabbah, who knew that they had to carry out strategic assassinations because they were few in number, therefore chose a weapon that would later become their symbol, the dagger. The poppy dagger, which they use in all assassinations, once brandished, there is no turning back. The last thing the victim sees is the flash of this dagger. Their first target was Nizām al-Mulk, the chief vizier of the Seljuk state. Hashashis never act hastily because they have a chance to make a single move. First, they infiltrate the enemy line and disguise themselves as people who create trust. So they approach the target for a while and send it in a detailed report to Hassan Sabbah at Alamut Castle, monitoring all their movements. The accuracy of the target, the number of guards, what he was doing every minute of the day, and even the weak point of his armor were reported. Hassan Sabbah and his close associates would also prepare a plan according to the report and give the order to land the final blow. Such was the end of Nizām al-Mulk when he stopped to greet two Sufi-looking people on his way to his harem during the evening. And he was stabbed repeatedly. Even after the assassination, the bouncers never ran away, stayed where they were, and were usually executed either by lynching or torture. This is something they do as a sign of courage. They were giving the message to their enemies that we are not afraid of death. Therefore we are not running, and increasing their influence much more. The Hashashis had infiltrated the Seljuk palace in such a way that everyone in the palace was suspicious of each other. They were everyone and no one. A farmer, a cook, a bodyguard, a beggar, a preacher, the commander, they were dressed in every disguise. Thanks to this, they caused the destruction of the Seljuk state with their Nocta assassinations. Many years later, Hassan Sabbah, who had reached the age of 74, died in his bed at Alamut Castle. But this did not bring about the end of the poppies. On the contrary, they have become stronger over time. They reached the power to make the Crusader armies kneel even to Saladin Ayyubi. Rashidin al-Sanā, who became the head of the sect many years after Hassan, expanded the field of action of the Hashishis by conquering many inaccessible castles. You may not have heard the name of Sanā much, but he is at least as enthusiastic, intellectual and impressive a man as Hassan Sabah. After the Seljuks, another threat had emerged for the Hashishis. The conqueror of Jerusalem, the favorite leader of Muslims, the successful commander Salahaddin Ayyubi.
This guy was a problem, because it is mentioned in many historical records that Saladin forbade believing in the Ismāʿīlī sect and had believers captured and crucified. Sanā, who was angry at this situation, told Saladin not to do this, but Ayyubi rejects them.
He even gathered an army and marched to the Poppy Castle in Syria. Upon this, realizing that it is time to give a message, Sanā reveals a legendary plan, a true story that has been told so far. Saladin Ayyubi wakes up one morning and sees a dagger stuck on the coffee table next to him. There is a note under the dagger. If not, these are written. We could have plunged this dagger into his heart. But we don't want you to die. Know that death is in our hands. Saladin Ayyubi realizes how close the poppies are to him and gathers his army and reaches an agreement with them. But this lesson is not enough for Sanā, and he sends another bouncer. The bouncer has a message in his hand, and it is necessary that this message should be told only to Saladin, so that no one else should hear it. Go before the Sultan, and he wants everyone in the room to leave. Salahaddin removes everyone from the room except for 2 close bodyguards, because these 2 guards are like his sons, and he says that there is no need to hide anything from them. He calls the bouncer all right. So you trust them a lot? Yes, you said, Salahaddin. I trust more than anyone. And the bouncer detonates the bomb, so he ordered his men to kill me.
Even if Salahaddin says this, the men won't move. And on top of that, what would they do if I told them to kill you?
Says. And Saladin's 2 most trusted bodyguards pull out their daggers and point them at Saladin. Saladin realizes once again that the Hashashis are closer to him than anyone else, and he does not touch anyone who belongs to Ismail's faith until his death. But the problem is still not over for the Hashashis. Conrad of Montferrat, a Crusader king, is a strong, tough and warlike man. He has already made enemies of the messengers of darkness. He had seized a poppy ship and taken the crew as prisoners. Sanā's failure to take a step back despite his warnings was his biggest mistake. Because rejecting Sanā means death, El-Sanā infiltrates his men on Conrad. His stepchildren soon take on the color of the environment and get a place for themselves disguised as a Christian monk. And they appear as 2 friendly clerics who have gained Conrad's trust and spent months with him. And one night these 2 monks, named Monfrin, who came across Conrad leaving his friend's house and going towards his own house, first saluted Conrad. Then someone distracts Conrad by dropping something from his hand, and at that moment they kill him by stabbing him repeatedly with a dagger. This death shocks the Crusader armies, and they agree that poppies should not be infected.
Because Conrad is not the only one. Sinar similarly erased many Crusader commanders who harmed themselves from the stage of history. Assassination was never the first option for the Hashashis.
Their main purpose was to spread fear and give a message: look, we're everywhere. That's why they were saying don't touch us. Sinar once ordered his men to jump on top of the ramparts to show a Crusader commander how daredevil they were. Seeing this, the Crusader commander stepped back in horror. In fact, there are many different legends about Hassan Sabah, the founder of the Hashashis, and his sect. We can say that these were usually a land campaign of his enemies. For example, there is no evidence of the belief that he drank poppies to his bouncers, showed the women in Alamut Castle to the funds, promised paradise and provided motivation in this way. No evidence of women or drugs has been found at Alamut Castle. In addition, the castle did not have a large enough area for the gardens of paradise described in the stories to be established. His name, which means poppy smokers, a type of drug, is also derived from this campaign. Their influence has spread so far that today the word poppy means assassin in European languages.
Hassan Sabah and the sect leaders who came after him were very smart when choosing suicide assassins.
For example, they would not choose people who stood out too tall or whose face would not be forgotten. Men who were more ordinary and who would not need to look back a second time were more valuable to them. Because their job wasn't just assassination. Sometimes he enters the life of his enemies. They would go on living like one of them for 20 years, even 30 years, until the order came and they were told what had to be done. Although many states and commanders fought, the poppy castles could not be captured for close to 200 years. But when it came to the Mongols, the Hashashis had to evacuate many castles, including Alamut.
He destroyed the Alamut castle and had all the books inside burned.
Except for one. This book is a book that has survived to this day and describes the biography of Hassan Sabah. In the book, Hassan Sabah is mentioned as the old man of the mountain. European historians today also often use this term. The Hashishis have never disappeared. The underground organizations have never literally ended. Although they have stopped their activities, today they are considered to exist in Nizār, a sub-branch of the Ismāʿīlī sect. Although their centers are located in the mountainous parts of Tajikistan, they are all over the world. And their current leader is the 4th Aga Khan, who is himself a descendant of the 1,000-year-old poppy leaders. And he's still alive. I hope they are content with just hiding. To get more information, you can subscribe to my channel and follow me on my Instagram account. Have a nice trip.